Yeah, let me share the screen. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about psychosocial health. As you look through these slides, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, you can look through them as well as I can talk to you about them. Just hit some highlights here. Um, when we look at the definition, make sure that you understand that it goes along with the modern definition of health that we've been referring to since the class started. So we're looking at mental, emotional, and social health, as well as spiritual health. So this is really, really important. And part of this has to do with the ability to handle stress in social situations, to handle our emotions. All of those things contribute to a healthier lifestyle, amongst other things. So here's the basic elements. You can read through these. Understand that these aren't all of them. You may find some in your unique situation, but these are they're some of the basic elements. What we're really trying to do is to exercise our minds in order to think rationally. Um, when we hear of something happening or we're faced with a crisis, the ability to take a deep breath, to let our minds get a hold of the situation in a rational way is really important. Now, of course, you're going to have a lot of emotion depending on the thing that happens, but the idea is that we're able to understand the information coming in, to make good decisions based on that information, and to do so in a manner that communicates well our thoughts and then dictates actions that are clear and well thought out as well. So it really is about maintaining control, and that's hard to do. It's like anything else, you have to exercise it. So um, if there are some aspects of your life that are a little difficult right now, that's pretty normal. So it's just a matter of exercising your brain in order to be able to think through things. Now, as we go through the rest of the slides, we'll give you some hints on how to do that. What we're trying to do is create this subjective part of our psychosocial health. It's how we feel emotions, and we all feel them differently. So we have to accept the way that other people feel them and be able to express the way we're feeling those emotions. Now, when it's happiness and joy, that's easy to express, and people can buy into that pretty easy. But it's when it's frustration and other emotions that come out that are a little bit harder to interpret. So um, what we're trying to do is get our emotions a little more stable so everybody can kind of relate to what we're going through. Now, that's not, once again, an easy thing to do either. So um, it's kind of what this slide's talking about. We're once again trying to control our emotion state so that other people can relate to us better, and therefore we can communicate our feelings better. And that's important. When we talk about social health, we're really talking about being able to communicate well with others, whether that's verbally or non-verbally. And a lot of what we do when we communicate with others is non-verbal. So how we express ourselves is really important. And making sure that we have control over that as well, or at least some aspect of control. Once again, I understand that it's difficult. We learn a lot of this from our families, our parents, our siblings. Later in life, we learn it from our peers on how to act, how we should act. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. But it is a learning process as we grow and we try to understand. One really important thing to remember when it comes to social health is in communication is the ability to listen. We should really be listening twice as much as we speak. We have two ears and one mouth. I guess you could think of it that way. So we should listen twice as much as we say. Spiritual health, there are some themes here. We're not talking about necessarily religious. We're trying to identify something outside of our control and try to make sense of that. There's some interconnectedness we can find with people. Sometimes we just get along with somebody. We don't really know them well. That might be some of this aspect of that outside force maybe applying. Certainly practicing mindfulness and clearing our mind, not necessarily clearing it of all thoughts, but just trying to stabilize and to control what's going through our minds is really, really important. There are some great studies out there on practicing mindfulness or spending time in a quiet place. There are some health benefits to that I'm sorry, the benefits are mental as well as physical. So having an interconnectedness with other people and the things that are around us helps us live in better harmony, makes things less stressful, and it's once again the thing that needs to be practiced. So there is an interconnectedness between all these aspects, and they rely upon one another. Mental and social can be connected straight down, and so spiritual and emotional can be connected straight across as well. And sometimes one of these outweighs the other. There's a nice well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that when these are in balance, it tends to provide a greater experience in our lives. So just know that these aspects of psychosocial health are interconnected. Here are some of those influences that we can talk about that might help you. So read through these and make sure that you understand them. Self-esteem, I realize, doesn't have a definition. Self-esteem is a balance between our confidence in doing something and then our fear of doing it. And so this is specific to a certain thing. So for example, walking, we probably have a pretty high self-esteem when it comes to walking. Most of us walk pretty good. Speaking a foreign language, on the other hand, may not be something that we have high confidence in. So our self-esteem when it comes to speaking a foreign language may be pretty low. We can test self-esteem. Matter of fact, one of the assignments that I give you does a test. Think of something specific that you're working on and see where your self-esteem is. Maybe it's studying, maybe it's hanging out with friends. See where you're at when it comes to that specific thing. So when you answer those questions in the assignment, think of one specific thing. Learned helplessness and learned optimism are kind of opposites here. We can learn, you can read the definition for learn helplessness, but we can certainly learn optimism too. A lot of that comes with forward planning and being hopeful for things that might be coming. Definitely our personalities, excuse me, play into this. A lot of times we were born with certain personality traits. Some of us are a little bit more shy than others. Some of us are a little bit more outgoing. Some of us like to joke around through stressful situations. Others like to cry. So it's kind of a personality trait. And those can be deep-seated core characteristics, but we can also have learned behaviors. So those of us who are shy realize that maybe we need to be a little bit more outgoing in order to get some things that we want accomplished. So we tend to be naturally shy, but we're able to kind of come out of our shell in certain situations. That is called, so we can learn to change those, but it's necessarily just changing for a certain situation, not necessarily changing our personality core. Certainly as we grow and mature, things change as well. Think of your grandparents. When I always think of this, when I think of my parents or my grandparents and how different they were when they were younger compared to what they are now. I mean, we tend to like to sit down and talk to our grandparents. They tend to have this wisdom about them because of their years of experience. So that lifespan and maturity tends to really help. Family certainly has a great influence. Where we live, the communities that we live in have a great influence. Certainly the friends that we've made over time can definitely influence our behavior. So we can't necessarily choose our family or where we are when we're younger as far as our environment. We can certainly choose our friends and our acquaintances. And as we get older and you begin to get out on your own and get a job and live on your own, you can choose your environment as well. So there's something that we need to talk about coping strategies. This is an action that we're going to use to get through some sort of stressful situation. The coping strategy typically involves some sort of direct approach to the problem. In contrast, we don't want to have a defense mechanism. We don't want to be reactive to a stress. Sometimes we have to, But we should be able to use a good coping strategy if we know that a stress is coming. For example, we have a test coming up. A good coping strategy would be to prepare for that test by studying. A poor coping strategy would be putting it off and going hanging out with your friends, right? That's probably not a great coping strategy for the stress that's coming up. The same can be applied for a stress that's kind of new. So somebody, heaven forbid, passes away in your life that was close to you. What's your coping strategy? Do you turn to others and look for comfort? Do you drink or do drugs? Those are other coping strategies. So it really depends on what you decide to do. The coping strategy is definitely in your control. Typically, it's a learned behavior. So it just depends on kind of what we've been taught over our lifetime. So coping strategies are interesting, and there's a way to test what your coping strategies are. Once again, it's for a specific situation. There's something called the Carver-Reeve Cope. This is how we're going to test it. It measures your frequency of the coping strategy that you're going to use, and we'll determine what that is. So look for that in the assignment page for the Carver-Reeve Cope, and we'll try to figure out what your coping strategy is. It'll be kind of fun. Self-esteem, once again, refers to your self-respect or your self-confidence in a given situation. Kind of talked about this before. Lots of things can influence this. Practice can influence it. Finding a support group, having realistic expectations. But we can change our self-esteem, our confidence in a certain thing by putting ourselves in that situation. Now, don't want to overwhelm ourselves either, right? But we want to make it hard enough that we can learn from the experience that we're having and gain confidence in our skills in that experience, whether it's talking to other people, whether it's learning to play the guitar, whether it's like speaking a foreign language, whatever it may be, we can practice those things, gain confidence in those skills, and gain self-esteem in that particular thing that we're trying to do. Oops. Another thing that really helps with psychosocial health is sleep. And here are some tips, and then I'm going to go to the next slide. Make sure that you watch this. You can either download it, and it should be in the PowerPoint. So you'll have to probably download the PowerPoint and then play this. And it's excellent. You can also look this up on YouTube. It's an excellent way demonstration of what happens when we sleep. We have a mind-body connectedness, and this is really what we're kind of working on. It's called subjective well-being, or SWB. And basically, this is just the feeling good about what's going on. Some people describe it as inner peace or wonder of their environment, but it really is just being satisfied with what's going on in your life. When your subjective well-being is positive, then you're in a good place. So we make goals for ourselves, we change behaviors, we surround ourselves with people that make us feel good, all because of this thing called subjective well-being. We're inclined to want to feel good. That's the natural state. And so as long as the things that we're doing to feel good are good for us and long lasting, then things will work out just fine. Okay, so there we go. I know that was quick, but if you have any questions or comments, text me or email me, and please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks.